This is going to be a big surprise for a lot of you guys. Done a lot of videos disagreeing with Tomi Lahren, of course, as you guys know. I've also made a video recently about how I actually agree with Tucker Carlson, who is somebody that I essentially vehemently oppose on almost every issue there is, especially with certain things that he says, like his xenophobic remarks. But we're going to be looking at an interesting, very rare case in which I actually agree with Tomi Lahren. She did a final thought segment on Fox News. Check it out. We're going to come back and talk about it.
It's time for final thoughts. Wouldn't it be nice if we could remove Bashar al-Assad from power, unify Syria, keep ISIS and al-Qaeda out, and tame Iranian influence in the region? Yeah, it sure would, but this is the real world, and the last thing we should do is continue our involvement in another Mideast disaster. Yes, the latest chemical attack in Syria was horrific, tragic, and despicable. As Americans, we feel for the Syrian people. But the cold, hard truth is, this isn't our battle. It's not our war, and we will not win it. Don't get me wrong, we have the greatest fighting force on earth in the U.S. military. But we can't win a war we don't even know what victory looks like. Overthrowing Assad doesn't solve the problem, not even close. This conflict is less about overthrowing a savage dictator and is now more about a struggle among branches of Islam that goes back more than 1,000 years. How do we win that? How many times will we keep sticking our fingers in the fire before we realize that spreading democracy in the Middle East does not work? How many times must we attempt to pick winners and losers in a civil and tribal war we do not understand? We've given the so-called moderate opposition in Syria weapons, funding, and training, not to mention the support of American troops, one of whom was just recently killed there. That's the spilling of American blood, sweat, and tears, and for what? So a year down the road, those same U.S.-supplied weapons can be used against us? We've been down this road too many times, and enough is enough. Yeah, as a Christian, I pray for the victims in Syria, but we have enough problems here at home. When are we going to put Americans first? When are we going to fight for our own interests and protect our own country? We've got crumbling infrastructure, an opioid crisis, veterans dying in the VA healthcare system, and a border that's barely a border at all. How can we save the world when we can't even save our own backyard? It is my hope President Trump will stick to his plan and pull us entirely out of Syria. Intervention has so far been the status quo, and this administration has certainly continued U.S. involvement. But this president was elected to break the status quo. We have nothing to gain in Syria and everything to lose. We cannot afford to lose more Americans in someone else's unwinnable conflict, period. President Trump, please remember, it's America first.
So again, if you are looking for something like this is probably something you want to savor as much as possible, because a situation in which Tomi Lahren and I agree is going to be very rare, and you're not going to see it happen very often. But, you know, watching that video, regardless of the fact that she's right, is still difficult just because her delivery is so pretentious and it's very artificial. You can tell that the kind of emphasis that comes on certain things and the way that she's always, you know, yelling at the TV and, you know, the microphone, you can tell that it's very artificially crafted and, you know, just really fake. So anyways, but besides that part, right, I couldn't agree more. The idea of overthrowing Assad and then being able to somehow maintain, you know, or make it so that the, you know, Islamist, you know, extremists and ISIS and al-Qaeda can't take over, or at the very least gain territory, get stronger, is absolute lunacy. It's completely wrong. That idea is completely terrible. And when it comes to the chemical attack, to be fair, we don't even know if Assad actually did it. There's a lot of questions when it comes to that. There hasn't been any actual independent investigations that have been done about it. But either way, even in that situation, leading into a dangerous situation like a World War III level situation over something like this is absolutely ridiculous. That's something that's absolutely unacceptable. But, you know, also the idea of going into Syria, just think about it, right? Syria would be basically a mini Iraq. Essentially what would end up happening is you end up having a vacuum, and what ends up happening? Well, what's going to end up happening is ISIS and al-Qaeda will easily take the bait. They will go in and they will start recruiting. They will gain much more power, just as they did in Iraq. So this is a horrendous idea, and right now regime change is legitimately the worst idea possible, because we are gifting the Islamic extremists and ISIS and al-Qaeda with more power if we do so, and that is exactly why we should not do this.